Okay, before we install the fretboard, I'm just going to redraw the center line all the way down to the bottom of the neck. And this way we can line up the fretboard. Okay, here's the fretboard. And this is a pre-slotted one. And I'm going to draw a center line down the back of the fretboard. I'm just going to make a couple of center measurements and then draw a center line. There you can see my center line going through the back. And now I'm just going to transfer this line to the very bottom and top edge. Of course, when we lay the fretboard on the neck, we won't be able to see that center line on the back. But we really want to get that line there that we can see. Then I'm just going to do the same thing at the top. And now I'm going to just use a little spring clamp and clamp this into place. I'm not sure if you can see how I'm lining up the center line on the fretboard with the one on the neck. And then I'm sliding that up. Make sure that you're flush with the bottom of the neck, or I'm sorry, the bottom of the nut. And then do the same at the bottom of the neck, lining that mark up with the center line. And just double check and make sure everything's straight and in line. It's very important that you get this fretboard centered. Okay, now I'm just going to trace out the outline of the neck. I'm going to do that on the other side. And now you can see how the line tapers to match the taper of the neck. And now this is just a little scrap piece of the binding that I'm going to use. We'll install a binding down the side of the fretboard. And now I'm going to allow for the width of that binding by marking on that tapered line a little bit less than the width of the binding. You want the binding to hang over the neck just slightly so that you can scrape it off later. I'm going to make a mark at the bottom, and then I'm going to make the same mark at the middle and one at the bottom, just to make sure that I've all lined up. And then I'm going to draw in this line. And you can see you'll have a double line here, but they should be parallel to each other and just the width of the binding. And now I'm going to set up what I would call a sled for the plane. This is just two pieces of wood that allow me to set the plane on its side, and it'll stay at a 90-degree angle to the fret so that we get a nice right angle taper on the fretboard. And once you've clamped it down, you can start to slowly plane this down till you get to the that inside line. And you can see here how it makes a very nice right angle cut on that fretboard. Now once we have that back centered again, your binding will fit just right. And again, it'll overhang the side of the neck just slightly. Now go ahead and plane the other side of your fretboard, and when you have that done, I'm going to pick a fret where I'm going to install an inlay, and I'm going to find the very center of it. I'm just going to draw two diagonals from corner to corner. Now if you're not putting any inlays or dots on your fretboard, don't do this, because we're going to drill, or actually just hammer in a nail right through the center there to hold this in place while we glue it. You can see how I found the center there. On that 5th fret, I'll have an inlay that will cover this hole up later. If you're not doing any inlays or dots, I would suggest putting this nail inside one of the fret slots. I personally don't like to do that, but if you do have a plain neck, you'll want to do that. And now I've got another fret here where there's going to be an inlay, and I want to do the same thing lower down on the neck. When we clamp and glue this, if we don't have something to hold it in place, it may slide on us and get out of center, and we don't want that to happen. So I've just put a scrap piece of wood down. And I'm going to take some very small brads. I actually have to hold these with a wire cutter or a pair of needle nose pliers. And I'm just going to position it right where those two lines crossed. And I'm going to hammer it in, but don't hammer it all the way in. One, we've got to pull these nails out later, and I just barely want it to come out the back. See there, it's just barely poking out, and I've still got room to pull it out later. Now I'm going to apply some glue to the back of the fretboard. And just smooth that out. Get it nice and uniform. And now you want to place this on the neck and line it up like we did before. Make sure that you're going to be flush with the bottom of the neck. And once you've got it lined up, just tap in those little brads so that it stays in place. And then I'm just going to use some scrap pieces of wood so that we don't damage the fretboard, and some C-clamps, spring clamps, whatever you've got. And I'm just going to start clamping this down. These scrap pieces of board were just some old paint paddles that I had and broke into some small pieces. They're just to keep from making any kind of dent in the fretboard. And don't put so much pressure that you do dent the fretboard. Okay, once it's dry, you can move the clamps, and now you can see we're going to cut a section of this off where the neck is actually going to end, because the fretboard is actually a little longer than you actually need. Double check with the plans, but I believe that's the 23rd fret that I'm cutting, and I'm just going to line up where the slot for that fret is and draw that line across the tenon. And then I'm going to take just a small flush cut saw, and where the top of that neck connects to the tenon, I'm going to cut back to that line. Then once it's separated there, I'm just going to cut starting at that slot and cut straight through down to the tenon. I'm just going to even that up a little bit. And now this exposed part of the tenon will still go into the slot in the center block.